On the night of June 11th, 1962, while San Francisco slept beneath a blanket of cold fog drifting in from the Pacific, a place built to erase hope was about to lose its greatest secret, because Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, America's most feared prison, was never meant to be escaped. Not because of its walls or guards alone, but because of the icy black waters that surrounded it. Waters so cold and violent that officials believed no human body could survive more than a few minutes inside them. And for decades, that belief had turned Alcatraz into a symbol of absolute control. A concrete island designed to break men mentally long before it ever needed to break them physically. And inside this island of silence lived men who had been labeled beyond saving. Men the system believed would never again see freedom. Yet among them was a quiet, intelligent prisoner named Frank Morris, a man whose mind refused to accept cages even when his body was trapped within one. And alongside him were brothers John and Clarence Anglin, raised poor, hardened by survival, and bound together by loyalty stronger than fear. And every day inside Alcatraz followed the same cold routine. Metal doors slamming shut, echoing footsteps in long corridors, tasteless food eaten in silence, and endless hours staring at concrete walls while the sound of distant city life drifted mockingly across the water, reminding prisoners that freedom existed just beyond reach. And it was during these endless days that Frank Morris noticed something the guards overlooked. The prison was old, crumbling slowly beneath layers of paint and neglect, and behind the sinks in their cells were small ventilation openings where decades of moisture had weakened the concrete, and what began as a thought slowly turned into an obsession, because Morris understood something fundamental. Alcatraz was strong, but time had made it fragile in ways no one bothered to see. And so the plan began not with violence or rebellion, but with patience, because patience was the only weapon the prison could not take away. And using nothing more than stolen spoons from the dining hall, the men began scraping at the walls night after night, hiding their work behind cardboard grates carefully painted to match the cell walls, stopping instantly whenever footsteps approached, their hearts racing not from effort but from the knowledge that discovery meant permanent isolation or worse. And weeks turned into months as the holes slowly grew large enough for a human body to squeeze through. And during this time, the men crafted the most dangerous illusion of all, the illusion of normalcy. Because by day, they followed every rule, worked assigned jobs, spoke little, and gave guards no reason to look twice at them, while by night they prepared for freedom in absolute silence. And knowing that guards checked cells visually after lights out, they created fake heads from soap, toothpaste, toilet paper, and prison dust, shaping faces just realistic enough under dim lighting, topping them with real human hair stolen from the barbershop. And when placed beneath blankets, these lifeless faces fooled the guards completely, allowing the men to work freely after curfew. And while the prison slept, believing all was under control, a raft was being born from scraps of stolen raincoats, more than 50 of them, stitched together, sealed with steam pipes, and tested in secrecy, because the men knew the water would show no mercy. And as June approached, the plan became dangerously real, because every night they rehearsed the route in their minds, through the holes, into the utility corridor, up the plumbing pipes, across the ceiling, past the final fence, and into the water. And on the night of June 11th, everything aligned. The fog was thick, the wind was steady, and the guards passed their final count without suspicion. And as silence settled over Alcatraz, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers pushed through their escape holes, crawling into darkness that smelled of dust and rust, climbing upward into the ceiling space where decades of neglect coated their hands and fear pressed down on their chests. And there, beneath the roof of the world's most secure prison, they inflated their fragile raft, knowing there would be no second chance. And just before midnight, they climbed down a kitchen vent pipe, slipped past the last barrier, and stepped into the unknown, lowering themselves into the freezing waters of San Francisco Bay and paddling into darkness toward Angel Island. And by morning, Alcatraz awoke to a nightmare. The guards shook prisoners who did not move, blankets fell back to reveal lifeless fake faces, and panic spread through the prison as alarms sounded and searchlights cut across the water, helicopters and boats scouring the bay, while officials assured the public the men must have drowned because accepting escape meant admitting failure. Yet days passed, then weeks, and no bodies surfaced, no remains washed ashore. And years later, fragments of the raft were discovered, along with evidence suggesting the men may have reached land, and family members quietly received postcards and photographs hinting at survival, forcing the FBI to admit after 17 years of investigation that the truth could not be proven. And Alcatraz, once believed to be escape-proof, was left with a question it could never erase, because whether the men drowned or lived free, they had already won, proving that even the strongest prison cannot cage the human will forever.